Quickly, before we get into the show, it's PLL All-Star Weekend in Louisville, Kentucky. They say every PLL game is like watching an All-Star game. So just imagine how entertaining an All-Star game in a League of All-Stars actually is. Tune in to the All-Star Skills Challenge at 1:15 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Plus to see who takes the titles for fastest shot, air gate, accuracy challenge, and more. And then at 3 p.m. Eastern on ESPN and ESPN Plus, the PLL All-Star Game presented by Better Mortgage will go down. Tune in to watch PLL stars Jeff Teat, Trevor Baptiste, Tom Schreiber, Brennan O'Neill, and more, all competing in the Eastern versus Western Conference game. Now, on to one-on-ones.
What's up, everyone? This is episode 12 of One-on-Ones with Mike and Paul. We are through basically half of the season, the regular season. 5 weeks in, All-Star break in front of us. Can't believe how fast the season is moving, but I feel like we say that every year. I would argue that the highlights thus far have been the 4 homecoming weekends coming right out of Boston. But first of all, how you doing, brother?
Good, man. Had my second baby boy last week.
Woo!
So got that done. It wasn't during one of our podcasts. Dominic Allen. So tribute to our dad and saints' names. So keeping it Catholic, keeping it in a Rabil tradition and an homage to our father. And you know, my wife is healthy and doing great, and so all is good, man.
Leo looks great too, as always.
Leo's being a good big brother. So we're all healthy. I'll be back on the road in Fairfield. I haven't been back to a PLL game since Charlotte. And so I'm dying to get to a game, man, and be there with everyone, with the fans, with the players, with our staff.
I feel like this podcast has been the ultimate baby tracker.
Yeah.
Every week we've been like, how's it going? When's it coming?
We should just move off this topic, probably. People are really sick of it. It'll be the last time.
I mean, look, people love babies. People love dogs. I think the 9th expansion team, we should have some rhythm of baby in there. We had dogs with our first expansion team, and it's crushed.
I got the name, the Beanie Babies.
Beanie Babies. Well, you know, we're going to have to go toe-to-toe with Ty in a massive lawsuit. But there you go. The Beanie Babies. Don't get me started on my collection.
Dude, do you still have those? Do you still have those Beanie Babies?
Mom has them protected in the attic at home.
A ton. I mean, you had like a couple hundred Beanie Babies.
Yeah, I collected them. I had the Beanie Baby Almanac. I was tracking the value, like the stock market.
That's when we've really started to realize you had some OCD tendencies, which has helped you in your career. But that's when we realized you were really like every single gas station in Montgomery Village, Maryland, you would scour on a daily basis.
I don't know how I did it. Like, what were my sources? Because this was pre-internet. So I was either calling. Oh, that's what we did. We would call the retailer and ask for shipment updates when they opened doors at 8 a.m. And they'd be like, we have a truck coming in today. It's like the old, chase for the PlayStation 2. It wasn't internet. It was just pick up the phone and call Best Buy and ask them if they got any shipments today. And then you bust ass over there to try to buy it.
Yeah, but you would also, there was the Shell and Exxon across the street. And so you would run to those and then you would make mom drive you to the other gas stations. Yeah. Sometimes they would get like a lucky allotment.
There was an obsession. There was OCD. There was also early stages of entrepreneurship. I failed, though, that course because I didn't sell at the high.
Yeah. You're just sitting in mom's attic.
I know. At one point, I had a unique Garcia bear that was worth like $2,500.
Holy shit. You got that Garcia bear. I forgot.
Well, it was like a tweak, right? Because Garcia bears were probably $100 a pop. And then if you had one that had a certain tie-dye, there was like the Princess Diana that I had. There was the elephant without the eye that I never found. That one was worth like 10 grips.
Crazy.
Yeah, but I collected all the dogs. So there you go, tying it all together. Beanie Babies and dogs. I love the dogs.
Now your newest obsession is the PLL.
Now, yeah. It shifted into lacrosse now the PLL. But I was in Boston, and I actually have a YouTube coming out with Brett today that we decided to shoot sort of the nostalgia or the recollections of my time in Boston. And I'll tell you, man, it was really intense because when I was traded from Boston in 2015 to New York, they had taken on new ownership with Rob Hale, who's now a PLL investor. and they moved over their games to Rabil stadiums, and they moved hotels from Cambridge to Kendall Square. And so the hotel, it started with the hotel I checked in, the Hyatt Cambridge. It's the same hotel I checked into as a 22-year-old in 2008. And the restaurant had changed. It used to be called the Zephyr, where we'd all convene for breakfast and then after games to talk shop. So I started feeling a certain type of way when I checked in, and then I brought Brett, and you'll see it when this YouTube edit drops, to the area where we did meet and greets, to Autograph Alley, to our locker room in a box. Then I took shots on the field. It was really personally a rewarding experience, one that I wasn't expecting. And then Brett did a great job of pulling. I don't know where you found those highlights, Brett. Where did you find those highlights of like meet and greets and Autograph Alley with like Matt Posque and Mikey Powell?
I dug deep in the YouTube channel of MLL. Since we have ownership of that, I was able to just like go deep in the archives and
Yeah.
find some stuff.
Yeah, it was very, very 480p, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was the first video uploaded on the MLL channel.
I think you need to dig deep into some water this morning based on that groggy throat.
Yeah, I just wasn't expecting to speak, but glad to have had my moment.
Mike, how did you feel about the reception from the fans and the viewing experience on ESPN Plus and 2?
I felt like I told the staff this yesterday on our all hands call that we do every Tuesday. It's called our TMM, Tuesday morning meeting. We just do it all hands across the entire company. And it's a rallying cry, but it's also updates across the business. And then we do like a weekly awards. Happy to go deep on that at some point. But I told folks that I had deep FOMO for that weekend. Usually I have FOMO when I'm not at a game or a weekend, but that probably some of the deepest, just because of the nostalgia, like you talked about. Years of watching you play at Harvard, what the Cannons meant to you, and then also to see that crowd, that Boston crowd, that Cannons crowd come out and be so engaged and loud and really into it and receptive. Not surprised. Boston sports fans are amazing, but Boston Lacrosse fans and Boston Cannons fans, I think, are emerging as really some of the top fans in our league. And it'll be interesting to see, like, as a new high watermark, right? Where the Outlaws come out and how loud they are, and how, the Utah Archers, like those fans apparently are really rabid.
That's an interesting call too.
So it'll be interesting to, just from sitting at home or sort of a league perspective, to start to see these fan pockets really emerge in these fan groups. MLL obviously built a couple great franchises that now we're lucky enough to have in our league, and those fans are really pumped. And so it'll be interesting to compare those to the other teams' fan bases over time.
Yeah. The conditioning of fans is really critical. So we learned that this weekend. Boston Cannons, we were expecting it with the Denver Outlaws. But I like your call on the Utah Archers, because the SLC market has been rabid, and we've gone every year. We hosted our bubble there. It's such an amazing sports fan community. And I feel like because the Archers are the existing crown jewel, call it, because they're the defending champs, there's also a unique vibe that I think the culture of that locker room resonates with the people of Utah. But it is difficult to build. It takes time, put it this way, to build that relationship that runs so deep between the fans that we saw in Boston and their team. And one of the takeaways for me is like, man, it is a insane lift every weekend that goes in, from our ops to our media to our BD to our marketing teams to our fan experience team, ticketing tech. Every weekend we put on 4 games. And typically when you get to the 4th game of the weekend, there is fatigue. We challenge ourselves as an operating group to be like, okay, this is still these 2 teams' first game. This is still some fans that are coming into their first game of the weekend. Let's kick some fucking ass. This 4th game was, I think, by far and away, it was the Cannons Water Dogs, and it was on Saturday night. It was our best 4th game we've ever had. And Boston Cannons fans, man, they know to show up on a Saturday night at Harvard Stadium in the summer.
It's fantastic. It was a pleasure to watch. I called Dad afterwards and was like, "Did you watch that game?" And he was like, "Oh, I had to go and do something."
Yeah, they went to dinner.
And he was like, I recorded. I'm going to watch the rest of it. And I was like, sit down and watch the rest of it. It was
You must have been livid.
Yeah. We shot it well. The broadcast, ESPN did an amazing job with it. And Jake Marsh on the sidelines was awesome. And Kark and Cotter were great. And, shout out to Mark Brady, who is, one of our most senior execs, runs our production business behind the scenes, is meticulous about our broadcast.
Yeah.
And so much of the shoulder programming that folks enjoy at halftime, the Zed Williams piece that we talked about during Indigenous Heritage Weekend, it literally made me tear up. Mark Brady and his team all that is really thoughtful, intentional about the production. We're maniacal about it. We talk about it as our software. That has to be really, really good. And Mark is in charge of that with ESPN and Ross Productions, and they do a fantastic job. It was great to watch. I think for me, I'd be interested to hear, just finishing the fan piece, I thought the high water mark was a Carolina Chaos, and then obviously Boston came in and up-leveled it. So we'll see where the rest of these fan bases go. I think what I've noticed is that those supporter groups, Red Legion, Boston Battery, they're really good at getting their friends to join and watch games, and they've started to build this really viral, localized fan supporter group that has led to increased attendance, viewership locally. So shout out to all supporter groups that are getting and grabbing your friends. It's really meaningful. Second piece is, did you feel like you wanted to suit up again? Because I know when you first retired, you were first year of watching in 2022, you were like, oh man, watching the games are hard. And then, last year was a little bit easier. Being back at Boston, did you feel like you wanted to play again?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like that feeling will never go away. And so then it's about your perspective or the relationship you have with wanting to play. I mean, I love playing. You and Mick would always make fun of me if we were in our first office space and there was a ball around, I'd start juggling it. And it's not just lacrosse. It's just sort of how I'm wired to chase sports around. I do want to give a second shout out to Mark Brady because he put together the halftime piece on E2 of Brody Merrill's full field shot that turned out to be a 2-pointer to either tie or win the game against the Rochester Rattlers. And it was 1 second left. It was such an insane goal. And he did a little story on it. And I didn't even get a look at it in advance. I usually collaborate with Mark, but he's taken full reins. Anyway, I knew that it went off. I didn't actually know, but at Saturday at 5:05, actually this is this time, so it was 8:05 because I'm on the West Coast. I get this text message from all-world goalie John Galloway, who's my former teammate, and he goes, "Gee, how about a heads up? Haha!" And then he throws a GIF that people don't forget. And he said, "I practiced that shot for the next 2 weeks." And I was sitting next to Alex Oss because we were watching the second half of the Cannons game and their rally. I was like, "The fuck is he talking about? What did I do?" I was on air, but I didn't talk about John. And then I was like, oh, it's the Brody Merrill halftime feature. So John Galloway, he's the head coach now of Jacksonville. And I wrote, John, it had nothing to do with it. Everything to do with Mark Brady. Here's his email. But he was like, I'm just kidding. It's all good. It was amazing. Great broadcast. And so there's that. And then the other piece, the last thing I'll say about the Boston Cannons fans, which I didn't know what to expect because Boston fans are diehard Boston fans. So I didn't know if they were going to turn over for the other two games. And the Cannons played the Redwoods game 1, night 1. And the Redwoods had a huge win, right? They were 0-3. Now they're 1-3. And you got to get to at least 4 to be in contention for the playoffs. Massive win. In a opponent territory, a hot Cannons team. I thought the crowd was going to turn over despite an epic Denver, New York game where you have Brennan O'Neill and this fast sort of young, talented squad for the Outlaws taking on, the top team in the league. They were there. They supported. They were treated to another insane Jeff Teat game. He had 9 points. He's now tied the PLL's single season record at 44 through 6 games. He has 4 regular season games left plus playoffs, and he's already tied it. He is going to obliterate the single season record of 44, which, by the way, it's 44 because we play fewer games than MLL peak days, call it. And the time per game is less, 48-minute games versus 60-minute games in MLL. The point record in MLL usually hovered around 72. So you're like 70 to 80 range. I think it moved up and down depending on a Rob Pennell season. So 72 points was the watermark for MLL. It's 44 in the PL, which also like shows how good the goalies and defenses are. But Jeff Teat is putting on a fucking season.
He is. And no doubt. And we talked about him a lot. I think we have to give flowers to Slim Reaper, though. I mean, you see with some of these balls, he's scoring a lot of points, but he's also getting a lot of assists. And sometimes he throws these passes over to Slim that's like, one, how does he catch it? And two is how does he put it in the net?
Very Matt Posca.
At some point, we got to get Slim Reaper on this pod. Maybe we'll do it in Fairfield because I know he's a Connecticut boy. Maybe that's what we do. We get Slim on here if he wants to come on. Yeah. And we talk to him about some of what he's done to be able to catch and shoot like that. It's insane how good Xander Dixon is.
We talked about it last week on the pod. He's unbelievable. And yeah, it's a great point, right? The seasons where, at least that I can speak to, where I had the most points, I had fantastic off-ball players around. Matt Posca, Brad Ross. Yeah. So I had top left, top right, crease.
Buchanan too, right?
Yeah, Buchanan, Posca, Brad Ross. And there were seasons where I had, 1.5x assists that I did goals. And then there were other seasons where it was the opposite, maybe 2 to 3 times goals. And it's not anyone's fault, but the chemistry. And you've got to put together a team, a composition of a team that, by the way, and Jeff Teat has most touches, most assists, most goals, fewest turnovers. Like, this guy is the epitome of not forcing it, but is firing all cylinders. So if you mention, Xander Dixon, you got to mention Trevor Baptiste in possessions won. You got to mention Connor Schellenberger. You got to mention Doc Sakin and Miles Jones and, Brian Costabile, guys that are willing to draw 2 and then get it to Teat to execute the final stanza. So that team is just ripping. And if there is a player, Jeff Teat kind of reminds me, if you've been watching the Euros, of Lamine Yamal. He was an 18-year-old for Team Canada 2 World Games ago when I was playing against him. And we were like, fuck, this kid is really skilled and small and thin. And Yamal is the 16-year-old for Spain. For those that aren't watching it, had this unbelievable goal in the semifinals against France to lead them into the Euro finals. It'll be on Sunday. And he's got braces. And anyway, Jeff Teat was that age playing for Team Canada. Just a really quiet guy. And we'll have him on the pod as well at some point.
Beautiful.
You're not watching the Euros, I take it.
No, I am. I sent it's called Copa America, right?
No, there's 2. That's confusing. So you have the World Cup every 4 years, and then you have the global regional cups. So Copa America is best teams in North and South America. The Euros are the best team in Europe. And then I think Asia Pacific has a cup as well, but it's less pronounced because the teams in the Americas and in Europe are just so good.
Yeah, I'm like watching segments of it, and I watch when I watch other sports besides lacrosse. Unfortunately, it's like all business. Like, I don't enjoy it because it's like I'm sitting there, I'm dissecting notes, and people at the company can always tell when I'm watching another sports program because I start sending notes.
Yeah,
I'm like, look at this camera angle. Look how they put their signage. It looks beautiful. Hey, we thought about this, like this. I don't like this. Like, look at this advertiser advertising with them. And it's like, it's like becomes work. So when the only reason I know Copa is I watched like a couple minutes of it and then sent a bunch of notes to our BD team late last night. And they woke up to like, a stream of consciousness from me.
Was it, you were watching the Argentina-Canada match?
Yeah. The Argentina match. Yeah. And then
it was pretty cool to see Canada in. I saw Sidney Crosby go into the locker room and speak to the team. Drake put a $300,000 bet on Team Canada. It'd have been really cool. I know the U.S. felt let down by their play. They didn't make it past the group stage, but they had a real chance of making it into the semifinals and finals of the Copa, and everyone would be talking about it right now. But Canada, no one saw coming, and then they're on the pitch playing against Lionel Messi. And it was kind of interesting for me watching it, being like, man, Argentina knows they're going to win this game. They're not like pressing. They're almost like saving their energy for the final. because to be fair, if Argentina plays like they did against Canada and they take on Uruguay, like they're gonna get smoked. But anyway,
So
this isn't a soccer podcast.
yeah. So speaking of best in the world, we got All-Star game coming up this
Yeah,
weekend in Louisville. Why
that's a
don't you take?
segue.
Yeah. Well, the best in the world are playing the All-Star game, right? So we're excited to go back to Louisville again. Last year, Louisville fans showed out. They were hyper engaged. Our players loved it there. The mayor was there. The mayor's coming back.
Yeah, Mayor
Why don't
Greenberg, shout out.
Yeah, take us through a little bit of the architecting for how we think about going to Louisville, why we liked it there, and then also some of the new skills composition sort of teasing that we can give all the work we've been doing for the last year on that.
Yeah, well, I met Mayor Greenberg through Matthew Barzum, who was a political aide for several decades and a big sort of benefactor of Louisville sports. And he and his son came to our game at Homewood a few years ago and sat field side, and we built this relationship. And then he's like, "You guys got to come to Louisville." And that's how it started. Last year was a huge success. But Greenberg is one of us. He actually is an investor in Ohio Wrestling Championship. I think it's the OWC or O something, but they have a Netflix doc, and it's pretty good. Al Snow is sort of like the face of Ohio wrestling, but he gets what it's like to build a league. So that's why he comes to the games, and just a great human being. And the people in Louisville are just awesome. They're so supportive of lacrosse. They don't get a lot of pro lacrosse. Last year's All-Star game, they stuck around 2.5 hours after the game, like just trying to get an autograph or a photo with Ryder Garnsey or Will Manny. But this year we're back. We will be getting back to our rotational plans around All-Star game. It's not traditional to go to the same city twice in successive years for an All-Star game, but we felt like Louisville deserved it.
Louisville deserved it,
They
and
deserved
they
it.
didn't get it. They didn't get a team. Doesn't mean they won't get a team in the future. But felt like we wanted to show them love because they gave us love the first time we came back.
Yeah. Yeah. So a few things. So the game is at 3:00 Eastern on ESPN. You can watch it on ESPN Plus. The All-Star Game Skills Challenge begins at 1:00 Eastern on ESPN Plus. That is actually one of our highest viewed Plus properties, and we've added some things to it. One is that we're taking our Unleashed All-Stars, a few of them from our championship series in February, and bringing them into our fastest shot competition, our accuracy competition, and an ode to the Kentucky Derby. We're calling it the Lacrosse Derby, which is sort of like a relay race meets obstacle course. More to come on that. But on the men's side, we have made a first-time tweak to the skills competition, which was basically carte blanche for do something really cool, a trick, a dunk, a shot from the stands. Shout out Drew Westervelt, 2009 in Denver at Mile High. Insane skills competition shot. He was like 150 yards away in the second row or third row of Mile High Stadium, and Brett Queener was in the net and he hit it no bounce. He had someone dress up like him. So we are rolling out, instead of a skills competition, the air gate competition. So I'm fired up about it. Gary Gate and Paul Gate, but really Gary was the first to do the air gate in 1988, a semifinal no less against Penn, down by a goal in the second half. The guy decides to try something new that could have been ruled out because no one had seen it before. He does it twice in that game. He gets dubbed the air gate after this guy that was playing in Chicago for the Bulls, who was having an up-and-coming career in the NBA. So we are paying tribute to Gary and Paul, who have naming of our Midfielder of the Year award. Gary is also just the icon of the game, and the directive specifically is going to be dunks. So you know what you're going to get there. I'm looking forward to seeing what the guys can do creatively around essentially a dunk competition, but we're calling it the air gate competition.
It's going to be sick. And we've spent a lot of time on this, right? We try to continue to be innovative when we do skills challenges and really highlight the skill of lacrosse. But, we really spent the past year thinking through what can we do to, make it more entertaining, but also highlight the skill. So I love some of these adjustments we've made. I love the Unleashed Incorporation, bringing the best women in the game to Louisville and and highlighting that. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be great. I'm jealous I can't be there, but I'm back on the road starting in Fairfield.
I would just say it's also a great example of us listening to you guys. You know, we hear you. We pay attention to suggestions. And I want to encourage people. You know, there's a difference between complaining and giving a rational thought with a suggestion. You know, and I think that those are the people that we find a lot of value in. Those that are calling, right? Like it's just there's a difference, and so we've gotten a lot of great suggestions for our All-Star Skills competition, and I think you're going to see some really material tweaks, and hopefully it yields a good return. Before we go to questions, I have this thought. On the heels of last year, Jared Newman set the world record shooting 121 miles per hour live on ESPN. It got, I don't know, 3 million views on Twitter, on their Twitter. It was shared as rapidly as Connor Field's insane Sports Center #1 goal through the legs, top shelf last weekend in Boston. Jared Newman and the Carolina Chaos have been off. They had a bye last week. My feeling, at least if I'm Jared, I'm wielding my stick and I am working on trying to get to 125 with now 2 weekends in front of me. I'm betting that he's going to set a new record.
I think he is, obviously one of the best defensemen to play in the PLL. I love his game. He's a leader on the field, and I know that he has probably been practicing this as well because he's fiercely competitive. So I'm excited to watch that. One piece to go back to the fans before we get into their questions. I was just pulling up this DM. To your point around, just like nonsense complaining, and it's always going to happen on social. People are just going to take like cheap jabs. And so that's just been like what it is. But then there's people that were listening to this podcast that are like trying to be helpful. So a couple segments ago or podcasts ago, we were talking about how do we get lacrosse sanctioned in more states. So then high schools are then using proceeds from their school funds to equip the men's and women's high school programming, and they can compete for a state championship and things like that. So I got so I'm psycho and I checked my DMs, right? And I got a DM from the head coach at Christian Brothers High School in Memphis, Tennessee. This guy Colin Welsh. And he sent the nicest text or nicest DM, but he was like, I was listening to your podcast with Paul and I figured I could shoot you a quick note. I'm originally from Baltimore. I've been teaching English and running lacrosse program at Christian Brothers High, blah, 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 blah. And I've been part of the group, president of TSLA from 2018 to 24, which is high school lacrosse in Tennessee from 1990 to 2024, and was in charge of the group that ultimately got boys and girls lacrosse sanctioned in Tennessee. And he goes on to say, hey, I want to help. Let me know. And so we're setting up a call with him and our team to see, what he can tell us about all the hard work he's done and getting lacrosse sanctioned in Tennessee and from this podcast. And that's been something that we've been really trying to think about. Do we hire a lobbyist? Who do we talk to? We got to work on this. Let's talk to USA Lacrosse. And we got an inbound from someone who's doing the real work in that community in Tennessee and got it sanctioned. So, that's pretty powerful. And, I'm appreciative of those fans and those people that want to continue to build with us.
Let's go to questions.
Hi, my name is Kayla. I've been an avid fan of the PLL since Paul started his YouTube channel way back when. I even won the Graffiti Alley giveaway lacrosse ball way back in 2017. But my question was more so centered around working in sports. I understand that working in sports has a high currency of people getting burnt out pretty quickly because of the energy and speed. How would you suggest for anyone who's interested in working in sports, whether it's within the collegiate level or professionally, to pace themselves when it comes to managing their time and all their duties that come with working with that? Thank you so much for what you're doing also with the PLL. I think you guys are doing a great job. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Appreciate the question, Kayla, and thank you for being a part of the notification squad on my YouTube channel. Mike, why don't I start with path into pro sports, and then you can talk about how we address things like fatigue. MR sent me a DM. We trade DMs around like inspiration, and I'll read two of them. This one spoke to me because I get called this quite a bit. It says, I don't mind being called intense. It means I pour my heart into what I do and refuse to merely exist. The second one was, I can't cry about having a lot on my plate when my goal is to eat. Um, so it kind of, Kayla, your question reminded me of that. And then I think about Debbie Millman, who's like all-time podcaster, author, designer. And she always reminds her audience that busy is a choice. And so when I'm going, I'm on flights every week for the next month and a half and doing X, Y, and Z, I remind myself that's my choice. But Mike will tap in more on that in a second. I would say, something that I think about in sports is that there's a high affinity for working in the industry because we grow up loving sports. That's why sports are such big industries. But there's really low inventory because there are, in most disciplines, one pro league and then however many teams within that. So there's not a lot of opportunities to work. And I remember Ted Leonsis, who runs Monumental Sports Group and Capitals and Wizards, him saying that the best path in is ticketing for two reasons. There's typically ticketing roles opportunity because those are lead gens to other business units. But most importantly, if you can learn how to sell a ticket, which is multidimensional, that means you learn the business because you have to understand fan experience. You have to understand the product. You have to understand ties into business development. You have to be able to talk about the media opportunities when the games are being broadcasted. You have to understand the youth element of sports participants, the casuals. And a lot of people don't want to start in tickets because they view that as just like direct one-to-one sales. But that, to me, is where you cut your teeth if you one day want to become a big sports executive. And we know a number of them who are presidents of organizations that started in ticketing. It's a grind no matter what side of the business you're on. Obviously, business development, corporate sponsorships are pure selling. I think media seems fun, but make no mistake, it's around the clock. So you have to sharpen your creativity. You have to be willing to dive in fully on Saturdays and Sundays and then recaps on Mondays. So there is a pro and con to really every element. My best, I think, advice, at least that I got, was sacrifice and work for free. You can no longer work for free anymore because employers are mandated, whether it's paying interns or volunteers, and that's totally fine. So just making a disclaimer there, I used to work for free. But what I will say is go find and try to service the person or organization that you want to work for.
Nailed it, man. I think I'll take a more macro view and try to apply it to just work in general. And then maybe what we do at the PLL a little bit, but I think you hit it from, the sports world. I think on the fatigue piece, look, I think that because, it's like sports media and media in general, if you work in the business of media and sports media or media entertainment, it's 24/7, unfortunately. I think that we didn't really fully understand that when we got into it. And then, you just have to be on it. Like, as a platform that speaks to fans, you have to really be thoughtful and intentional about your brand. You have to be on it with all the different like things that pop up. Like there will be like another 20 things that pop up today for me and Paul from our team that we have to address. And that's not just for us. It's like for a lot of people at our company, they just like things pop up, right? Because of the dynamic of, a live sports product with the best players in the world. And then if you incorporate, digital social media into that, there's just a lot of moving pieces that never really go to sleep. And so how do we manage not being, overly fatigued or burnt out? You can put things in place that we do at the PLL to try to combat those things. I think the first thing is just what Paul talked about, being honest about what it is and what you're getting into, and in the pre-screen when you're interviewing people, and just being like, hey, this is what it is. Like just being really honest about it. This is a lot of hard work at the league. Not only is it 24/7 the sports media space, but building a startup, you got to work extra hard and being really honest about that. And that's okay if it's not for you. Like seriously, if you want to find that balance earlier in your career or in your career, it might not be the idea situation. Now we try to create moments of balance. So I'll give you one example of many. But at the end of our season, second week after our season's over, we do a whole company-wide mandated dark week. We call it dark week. We notify all of our fans, all of our players. It's a mandatory vacation in addition to all of our other vacation. The whole company goes dark. We don't exchange emails, Slacks, text, nothing. It's just, we're not working. And it's sort of a tip of the hat, but it also allows everyone to sort of have something to look forward to after the season and then be able to wind down for the intensity of it. So you put in mechanisms like that at the company. We have many more that we do and try to practice. I think that the general like advice though would be to especially to young people early in their career, like Paul talked about. You got to really take a step back and figure out like what you want, right? And if you are highly ambitious, like earlier in your career, you're probably going to work a lot more, and you're going to accumulate as part of the reward for that hard work. You're going to get a lot of skills, and so later in your career, you're going to have all these skills that then you can apply to things that maybe you didn't know that you could even do. Or now that you have these skills because you put in the work earlier in your career, you have a lot more choice and you're a lot more effective in your role as a senior leader because of that experience. And so a lot of people will come to the PLL. We just, our new VP of operations just came from the NBA, and he was reading and leading operations, Sean Weinstein over there at the NBA. And he's like, I want more responsibility. I want to be in charge of all operations league wide. And, he had one section of the NBA and he wants more opportunity. Right. And so I think that people come to the PLL because they want more. They want to wear more hats. They want more skill acquisition. They want to do something that's hard. We talk about that. We're like, what we're doing is hard, but it's rewarding. And we're doing it with a bunch of high achievers. And I think if that's the calling card, and I think if people believe that, then you have this united front, and we have a bunch of missionaries and fewer mercenaries. And I think that's really important.
Yeah. Well said. If it, just choose your lane. You can't have your cake and eat it too. If you want work-life fulfillment, you've got to grind. If you want a job that's easy, you're not going to feel as fulfilled in your career. It lives in sports. It lives in romance. It lives in every area of life. It's the Buddhist calling.
Hey, Mike and Paul. This is Jake Kazansky. I'm moving out to California right now, so I just want to say thanks for categorizing and bringing the teams into territories. Roll Woods now, I guess. My question to you all was, I saw around 421,000 viewers, I think, for the opening season game. I may be wrong on that statistic, but I was thinking about the economics of expansion, watching Beta of a Sport, getting Paul's book, and I'm wondering how you're currently converting those views into opportunities and then building equity. Many different layers to that question. So complex. Thank you for hopefully answering this question, and have a great day. Take care.
Jake, amazing question. I'll take a first stab at this, and then Paul can jump in. Excited for you to move to California. My mom, quick anecdote, when we were moving to California, when I was moving to California, go to San Francisco to work start my own company, work in tech. She was like, you're never going to move back. And I was like, Mom, it's going to be 1 year. I'm going to come back. And it's been 11 years, but I don't think we're here permanently. We'll see. But anyway, you're going to enjoy your time. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to meet a lot of interesting people. California is great for all the smart minds and interesting things that people are up to. I think on your question around viewership and how that sort of works its way and how we build, long-term equity, I view the PLL, we talk about this like a fan funnel. And before we get into the different layers of the funnel, you have to be laser focused on every sort of entry point, whether it's top of the funnel or inside of the funnel. We are providing value back to our fans, right? And because we know that your time is really valuable. And so if you are giving us your time, which is watching a game or opening up our app or watching a game on ESPN Plus or going to a game or buying a piece of merchandise or jumping in and listing a call for our podcast, you are giving your time to this business. And so one of the things that we talk about, it's not a mission statement, but it's sort of our calling card, is we have to improve the lives of our fans every time they interact with the PLL. So all those different moments I talked about, how do we continue to make that experience better every single time? And people are probably sick of me and Paul jumping on our TMMs and talking about that. But it translates. So it's whether it's customer service for merch purchasing or ticketing or improving the UI UX of our app and making sure those tweaks to the broadcast are better. And so what happens is when someone watches a game on ABC, which is the widest funnel we can possibly cast, what we do is we hope that broadcast experience is so good and so interesting, and the game is so great, and the stories are being told are so good, and the skill and the highlights of the players are so good that they're maybe download the app. Maybe when they download the app, they pick their favorite team. Maybe when they pick their favorite team, they watch another game. Maybe they download ESPN Plus, right? Maybe after they've watched the second game, they buy a piece of merchandise with their favorite player. Maybe they're going to get some trading cards. Maybe they're going to come to a game, and maybe they're going to bring their friend. But we have to keep adding value and maybe making those experiences really, really impactful and really, really valuable back for their time. And then over time, the more people that we can get to trickle down to the funnel and do more things, the more people we have engaged at a higher rate. And then that builds more value for the league that then we can go to corporate sponsors and ESPN and say, hey, look at what we're doing. Look at all the value. Look at the engagement rate for this audience. We can then demand and command a higher price point, and then we invest that back into the players. So that's kind of the funnel and how I would think about it.
I'll try to match that. So more eyeballs, to your point, viewership, more revenue, greater investment back into player wages. Players get paid more. More players get paid, more they get seen. More participants there are. More participants, there are more opportunities for lacrosse to grow domestically and internationally. That's how equity in the league and equity in the sport continues to build. You mentioned my book. Something that I talk about inside of it is there's no such thing as an overnight success. F1 was an $8 billion global business before Drive to Survive. The UFC started over 30 years ago. We're $40 million in the hole before starting the Ultimate Fighting Championship, or the Ultimate Fighter, which was the reality television show that helped them lift the narrative around their players and the discipline. The WNBA was securing 500,000 viewers per game, or just shy of that, last year before the Caitlin Clark movement. It takes a long time. There are building blocks. We have and always have proposed to investors that we want to build what the big five have done in half the amount of time. We grind like hell. We just talked about it on with the answer of our last question. I would say that the additional calling card that we make through our team is it's not just about new business. We are in the retention business as well. So Mike talked about how much value we can drive to our core fans. Each of you that listen to this show or watch this show on YouTube, you are like bottom of funnel. We love you. You clearly enjoy the PLL and want to learn more about the business. You are so important to us. We want to have a 90% plus retention scorecard against our PLL corporate partners, which means we have to spend a disproportionate amount of time with them so that they're happy and they're getting a huge return on their investment. My ask to you as our bottom of the funnel core fans and mavens of the PLL and the sport at large is tell your friends to watch, share the games and links, introduce us to your ideas, and we'll involve you.
Bring them the games. 100%.
Adam Hollis with a quick question. So in the vein of don't let expectation get in the way of appreciation, I'd love to hear from you both what you both have appreciated the most, or is at the top of your list as you embarked on your PLL journey.
Man, all right. So this is from Coach Hollis to me. He was he recruited me to play football at Dartmouth. He was a running backs coach when I was there, and we've kept a relationship since. I didn't know he was going to call in. So I guess I'll start with you, Coach Hollis. A couple things. One, just the appreciation for you recruiting me to Dartmouth. Dartmouth changed my life, and thankful that you believed in this kid from Montgomery Village, Maryland, and my mom pushed me to go to Dartmouth on that official visit. I really wanted to go to William & Mary because they were giving out full scholarships. My best friend got his full scholarship there. He's a year older than me. And you didn't let that get in the way, and you kept in contact with me. And when I got to Dartmouth, you made me feel special. You made me feel seen and understood. and I was hooked, and that made the decision there. And Dartmouth and the people I met changed my life, and I wouldn't be here building the PLL with Paul if it wasn't for that visit when you came to Montgomery Village in our house. And so just appreciation for you. And, I asked you this just on the appreciation piece, actually, because, I think it was like my junior year, and I started having I was a little more self-actualized, and I was thinking about the world. And I went into your office one day and I was like, Coach, I was like, you are like the smoothest, best looking coach on the staff. Like, why are you the running backs coach at Dartmouth in this little dungeon of an office over here? And you go, Mikey, uh, and I think you actually used to call me Stromboli too, because my mom would send me Stromboli. You go, Stromboli? And you go, let me tell you something. I get to walk out to practice and smell fresh cut grass in the fall and watch a bunch of football players play football. He's like, I get to do that every day for a living. He's like, that's pretty cool. It's like, yeah, but couldn't you make more money on Wall Street or something? You're like, yeah, I could. And I tried it, but I love what I'm doing now, man. And so I think in that moment, you actually showed appreciation rather than expectation for where you were. I know now you're in the corporate world and killing it. But I appreciate those moments that you taught me and those lessons. I'd say just on how I think about things now. I was talking to Mike Levine about this last night, who's a board member, co-head of CEA Sports, mentor to myself and Paul, means a lot to us in our business. And he was trying to give me some advice and he did give me great advice on parenting, because I was, having two now under two. I was a little bit worried, and so I was like, well, yeah, it's easy for you to say, man, you've crushed it. You built CAA Sports. And he was like, dude, I was like, did you ever, he was like, I was doing this before that. I was at Learfield. He's like, I was making sure I had space for work and my wife, even though I had three little kids, and you got to make sure you're doing that. And I didn't know if I was going to make it. I wasn't even at CAA Sports then. And so I think that what I've learned recently, and I've been doing a lot of writing at night. People use the word journaling. It's not structured. But I found that two common things come up for me when I'm just writing at night. One is time is more valuable than it's ever been. And it felt like when we were younger, there was just this abundance of time. And so really making sure that we are spending our time wisely now today with things that we want to do, things we want to be building, and with people that we want to be around, based on our own value set. And then two, I've just found that I've been more appreciative of where I am in life because of my life experiences, whether it's traveling, being around different people. I mean, we're pretty lucky. We get to build a sports league. Yeah, it's hard and we're not martyrs, but I get to build it with my brother, get to build it with people that are way smarter and more talented than me. And that's a pretty exciting part of life. And I'm able to put dinner on the table every night for my family. And ultimately, I don't care about being judged around, the big win or being on social media or being on Forbes. It's just about the moments and the appreciation that we get. And it's a constant reminder because our lizard brain does take over. But I think those practices of writing is hopefully helping me a little bit more with that expectation. Paul,
Yeah,
over to you on that.
that was really good, man. Reflection is a big piece for me. As you mentioned, writing helps us reflect and appreciate. I think about, as you said, doing the stuff that you love. Steve Jobs famously said, do not outsource the things that you enjoy doing most. And that's why he was always involved in the creative design process of the next device they were launching, whether it's computers than iPhones. And we have certain areas of the business that we really enjoy doing that neither of us should outsource, because that's when you sort of lose the love and passion. Coach Hollis, I'm not sure if we've ever met, but I heard a lot about you, and I appreciate the don't let expectation get in the way of appreciation. Tony Robbins would say, trade in expectation for appreciation. Exactly what you're saying. And like Mike, I was having, he had mentioned vino. I was having dinner in New York a couple of days ago with our cousin, Al Rabil, who, had, here's just a reminder of how things move on in the day, and we've got another call. But Al reached out to me. We had never met him. He's a second cousin. He reached out to me in 2015 when I was with the New York Lizards, and then came to a game. Then we ended up grabbing our first dinner in LA together shortly after. And he's been great with Mike and I since. He's an investor and, just a high achiever, competitive as hell, similar to what we were just talking about on this pod. Now he runs Kane Anderson Real Estate. And we were talking about exactly this, the journey. And he's built these huge businesses, and, we continue to work and grow the PLL, but the moments that we remember is the small office space with 2 or 3 people, a vision and conviction. Like, that's the stuff that makes it all worth it. And the relationship to sport too. You win a championship, you build a company, like, it's satisfying, but then it goes away. And you find yourself inevitably talking about the midseason terrible thump that you took from Duke in Durham, when you were wearing, porthole mesh Johns Hopkins jerseys and looking forward to this 1 versus 2 matchup. And then you get to see them again. And that's the moment that you remember, is getting your ass kicked in Durham. Or for us, grinding with a few people on this idea and trying to convince investors that pro lacrosse had a place in the larger sports ecosystem. So I think about reflection, and, it's not novel. Every person that tends to be older and accomplished will say that, even Jim Carrey says, I wish that everyone had an opportunity to experience fame and all the money in the world, so they can realize it's not about fame and having money.
Hell yeah. All right. We got meetings. We got the season rolling. We got All-Star Weekend. Let's get after it. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Paul. See you soon, brother.
Thank you, Mike.